I'm joined in the studio now by Kirrily Lowe. Kirrily was a lawyer working with young people and followed a call to enrol at Bible college. Since then, she's left formally the legal profession and is now involved with her husband in leading a church in Sydney, as well as being a busy mother. That's a job in itself with 3 children, 3 boys, actually. Welcome, Kirrily. Lovely to talk to you.
Hello, Keith. It's lovely to be here.
Was it a difficult decision to leave the legal profession?
You know, I'd always wanted to be a lawyer since I was a very little girl. But in my early 20s, I really had an experience with Christ that changed me. And I felt a very strong sense of calling to serve in the ministry. So when the time came and I was working with children and I loved the work, I was involved in defending children in the children's courts and I was passionate about it. But in my heart, I really knew that the law could only go so far in helping people and changing people's lives. And I knew that ultimately it was a change of heart that was going to bring transformation.
But that experience has helped to contribute to your understanding, perhaps, of some of the needs of young people.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. I saw a lot when I was out there and it wasn't all nice, and young people are dealing with all sorts of challenges, and often those challenges and circumstances of life can lead them down pathways that are far less than ideal.
If you feel you were giving something up, what did you feel you were gaining?
I think, you know, the Bible talks about leaving everything for the pearl of great price. And I very much had that sense that I was giving up things that I'd been personally pursuing for Christ, who for me was the pearl of great price, and obedience to his voice.
Now, we've got some books here. This is something that you've been very much involved in. That's a specific part of what you believe God has been doing through you and calling you to do. So why don't you just take one, read us a line from one of these books that you've written, and then I'm going to ask you all about it. But before I just ask you to do, how did it all come about, this?
Well, I never planned to write children's books. It was quite unexpected. I had my 3rd child and I was exhausted. Busy mum, ministry. I was quite sick and frequently sick. And during that time, I felt the Lord starting to teach me about the power of joy and the strength that it can bring in our life. And I was sharing that message, and before I shared it in our church one evening, I sat down and I wrote a little poem. It just kept coming to my head, and I thought, oh, I'll sit down and do something with this, about a little girl who'd lost her joy and was looking everywhere to find her joy, and where she eventually found it. And I read it out to the church that night, and about 3 different people approached me and said, you really need to turn that into a children's book. And I thought, oh, I've never thought of that.
So why don't you take the one piece, which is on the top here, read us the beginning, and then let's talk a bit more about it.
Sure. Well, the first line of peace, here we go. I found myself in a storm today, and a prince called Peace came out to play.
So something that strikes me about that, you're straight in with the word that matters, aren't you? We're not waiting for the end of the story. But also, it's simple rhyme. And I don't mean that to sound trite. I don't mean by simple anybody could write it. That's not what I mean. But for a child and for a parent, I mean, I'm trying to imagine what it's like, because I've been there. You come in at the end of the day, you're tired, you're worn out, and you know you've got, I mean, later this evening, we'll perhaps be reading stories to grandchildren, and you know very well that you want to do this well, but also you can't take all your energy.
Yes.
Is that...
Yes, absolutely. I think as a mum of 3 boys, I'm exhausted by the end of the day. But I want to spend time with them and read with them. So I'm looking for a story that's fun, engaging, not too long, quite short, and I personally like rhyming poetry. I think it's fun and easy to read. So when I conceived the idea of this series of books, that's definitely the direction that I went in. Very fun and relatable,
and Galatians, fruit of the Spirit, that's
Yeah.
very much the... Well, where does the Christian faith fit into the stories? How does that work?
Yeah, so the series is based on the fruit of the Spirit in Galatians, and the series is titled The Invisible Tree. And it's the idea of this invisible tree growing on the inside of us, producing all of this good fruit. So some of the stories will really refer to God directly and some not so much, but obviously the message and heart of Christianity is the foundation of the stories and right through them.
Well, thank you for sharing that with us. We're going to make a link on the website so that people can go and find out more about these books, but also thank you for sharing a little bit about your change of direction. I think that tells us all that we might think we're going in one direction, this is the only option for us, and then God opens another door. And when God opens a door, then we've got to go through it, haven't we, to fulfill our... Thank you ever so much, Kirrily, for sharing with us.